And we are live. Hey, hello, and welcome to the Troy Francis channel. Welcome to the stream. So look, this is a bit of an impromptu one, guys. If there's any guys or anybody else indeed watching, if there's even any alien life forms watching, then you are welcome to the show. A mental few days. I've just been out in town. I had to go and meet with a friend and do some stuff. Before that, because I've been doing the webinars for my course, CAD Academy, this week, you see. So it's all been pretty crazy, and I've actually got to do another one shortly after this show. Just hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I've got to do another, I'm doing another CAD Academy webinar after this. So I'll be on here for about half an hour. And what I'd like to do is, if you guys have got questions, I would be really grateful if you stick them in the chat, and we will get to them in terms of later on down the stream. We'll get to the questions. Delta 999, more like not to catch a case. Yeah, I don't know what that means really. So anyway, listen. So what I wanted to talk about was the fact that I was just out and about in London, and I saw a fantastic daytime approach. I saw a fantastic day game approach. Okay. And what you tend to find when you've done this stuff yourself, and when you work in, I suppose, in this space, and you're training guys and everything else, it becomes a lot easier to recognize when people are doing a spot of the old day game or a spot of the old daytime approach. You know, like to others, I'm sure they probably just walked past and they just saw a guy and a girl talking, and it's like, yeah, whatever, you know. Didn't think anything of it. But for me, because I have a trained eye, I'm able to spot pretty much immediately how to whether or not somebody's doing daytime approach. Okay, so I could just kind of click into it and spot it. And I was in central London, and this guy came and sort of sat down next to me for a bit, and he was looking around, scanning the environment and everything. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he's kind of dressed quite cool as well. Had sort of a nice suit jacket on and a shirt and stuff underneath. Looked kind of cool. And I thought, that's interesting. Anyway, then, and I was just having a bite to eat at the time, so I was just eating something out of my, whatever it was, and I was looking at my phone and blah blah blah. And I looked up and looked around, and the guy had done a runner, and basically I looked around. I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. That guy's just gone." And then I happened to look around, and I saw that he was talking to this girl, and I thought, "Oh, interesting. Okay." And then I was sort of watching them between eating and doing what I was doing. I was kind of watching them. I was thinking, do they know each other, or is this an approach? Is this a day game approach? And sure enough, it became clear pretty much immediately to me that this was a day game approach. That is to say that these people hadn't known one another beforehand, and he just got up and started talking to her. He introduced himself to her. Okay, so at that point, obviously, I'm interested because it's kind of cool to watch other people doing this stuff, and it's kind of cool as well just to see what their level of skill is really, and how good the approach is going to be or not, etc., etc. Yeah, very funny. And so I was watching this dude and talking to this girl, and it was really, really good. And he kept her engaged for a long time. And I was there for a while because I was doing some stuff on my phone, had some stuff to sort out. So I was kind of kept looking up and looking at them, and he kept it going. He kept the conversation going. They were talking for a long period of time. And of course then the acid test is, well, okay, that's fine, you can keep talking for ages, but is anything going to come of this? Are you going to are you going to exchange numbers? Are you going to take on a date, an instant date or whatever? So I was kind of keeping an eye on everything, and I looked around, and a bit later, sure enough, they were exchanging phone numbers. This girl had given the guy her number, and they were tapping it into each other's phones or whatever. So, really successful approach, really, really well done. Now, I was too far away to hear what was being said, but I was able to see the body language, and I was able to sort of get a sense of the interaction, I suppose, from that body language. And yeah, it was cool, man. And it was sort of kind of heartwarming in a way that people are out there and they are doing this and they're doing it successfully. And I mean, this dude, he wasn't like a Brad Pitt character. Do you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't sort of like, he wasn't like gloriously attractive or anything like that. So Delta says they do that sometimes just to break away. That is true, they do. But I mean, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it is true. And the thing about day game as well is that, like, there is a lot of attrition with day game for sure. And by the way, put your questions in the chat. Anything that you want answered regarding dating, day game, night game, whatever, stick it in the chat and we'll get to it a little bit later in the broadcast. Yes, I mean, he's absolutely right. Numbers do flake, and this is the whole thing, right? So getting a phone number, particularly like getting a day game number, it's like it doesn't really mean anything until you go to the next stage. And the next stage is obviously you message, and then does she message back? And then if she does message back, how long does it keep going for? And then will she come out on a date and blah, blah, blah. And, the reality, of course, is that it's not over until the fat lady sings. You've got to go on that date, and you've got to progress things further. And if that doesn't happen, then, the approach can't be said to have, like, worked because... you didn't get what you actually wanted to get out of that scenario, let's say. But putting that to one side, let's give this dude the benefit of the doubt for a minute, because unless he was going to try to take her for a drink instantly or take her home instantly, and let's face it, taking somebody home immediately from a daytime approach is relatively unusual. It's not that it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen very often. So taking those eventualities out of the equation, then he achieved within that interaction as much as you can hope to achieve, which is to say that he had a conversation with her, he engaged her for a period of time, and then she gave him the contact details. Now, Mr. Delta 9999 is correct in the sense that he may now message her and she may just not reply, and maybe she was doing it to get out of the way, and we can't know that for sure. But equally, if you have the skill set to go and do that once, he's got the skill set, this dude's got the skill set to do that once, to go up to this girl he doesn't know, start talking to her, get the phone number. He's got the skill set to do that 10 times. He's got the skill set to do that 100 times. And out of 100 chances, you are going to get traction. You are going to find people that you are going to find women that like you and that actually seriously want to get to know you more. So the important thing, really, rather than sort of focusing on a micro instance of is this one going to work out or not, you need to really think about developing the skill set, because the more that you do this stuff, the more results you are definitely going to get. So what was this guy doing right? Well, like, from what I could see, he was being his stance was very dominant for a start. He was standing there very dominant. He was also doing something that they used to call body rocking, which is a bit less sexy than it sounds, but basically he had his body turned slightly away from her. And it kind of looked throughout the whole interaction like he might be just about to walk away. He might be just about to walk off. And that's really key, because particularly in the early parts of an interaction, right, you don't want to give the impression that she's got you fully, okay? Because remember, what is the frame when you go into these interactions? Well, the frame is, I'm a guy, you're a girl, I find you attractive, but, and there's got to be a but, let's see if you live up to that. Let's see if you can impress me further. Because remember, when you go into the interaction, rather than her qualifying you, you want to be qualifying her, Okay. Now, guys get confused about this and they find it difficult because they'll be like, well, but I've walked up to her, so she knows that I like her, and I've maybe paid her a compliment, so she knows I like her. So how can I then be qualifying her? But you absolutely can. Because, look, I mean, think about it like this. You're a guy, okay? And so naturally, you find women attractive. And you find many, many different women attractive. I mean, you could walk out the house and you'll probably see like 5 or 10 girls that you find sexy, that you find desirable, okay? But not all of those girls are going to be ideal for you because of personality, because of like things that are going to get in the way to you having a harmonious relationship with you. And some girls, you're just going to find her really annoying, or you are going to find that you just don't like talking to her. There's something about her personality that grates or whatever. So the frame that you must always have when you walk into these interactions is that even though you were the one to start the interaction, you are also basically auditioning her. I mean, this kind of thing happens the whole time, right? Think about something like the model industry. So somebody, a scout may go up to a girl or even a guy and say, listen, I think you've got what it takes to be a model, right? So call this number and come in and we'll do some tests. We'll do some test pictures. We'll see if you shape up. So the modeling scout has expressed an interest, but then when the person comes in and they get in front of the cameras and they try to do the catwalking stuff and all that, that person may be absolutely terrible. And then the model scout may say, listen, after due reflection, we've realized that you're not actually quite what we're looking for, okay? So there's that sort of audition process. So even though the model scout or the agent express that interest up front, it doesn't therefore by default mean that the candidate is going to get to the last stage. And with your approaches, you've got to think about it in the same way. I mean, yes, there is a certain baseline interest, there's a certain baseline desire that you have for this girl that you're talking to, because otherwise you wouldn't be talking to her. But then by the same token, if you're a guy and you live in a place where there's a lot of attractive girls, then you probably get that, 10, 15, 20 times a day, maybe more. So that in itself is not a reason, you shouldn't be sub-communicating to her that she's incredibly special because of that, okay? I mean, yeah, it's cool, she's cute, she seems interesting, you want to get to know her a bit, but then she's still subject to your vetting procedure. This is more mindset, by the way, what I'm saying here. This is more like what should be going on in your head, the vibe that you should be putting across. So although she's passed the initial test, which is she attractive? Am I attracted to her? Is this somebody that I find desirable and I'd like to get to know her more? Although she's passed that first test, she hasn't passed your other tests, which are going to be personal to you. Now, I'm not saying that actually in real life you need to seriously have this set of tests in the back of your head, like, can she cook? Is she wearing Vans? Or, things like this. Although you might do. I mean, some coaches recommend that you do have a checklist in your head and you apply those things. So it might be worth thinking about, like, well, what is my checklist? What are the things that I am actually looking for, even if it's in a casual partner? But for the purposes of what we're talking about here, just like doing basic day game, you don't need to have like the shopping list in your back pocket kind of thing. But you certainly need to give the impression that you're such a refined man who's such a player. You're so used to doing this kind of stuff that for you, beauty, while desirable, is not enough. Okay, there needs to be something more. You need to find out if she's a cool person. You need to find out if you guys gel, if the energy is right, all of that kind of stuff. Okay, that's the impression that you need to give, because you need to be sort of like sizing her up a bit. Okay, it shouldn't just be you standing there going, "Oh my God, you're gorgeous. What can I do to please you? Oh, darling, gorgeous one," and all of that. That's not the vibe that you want to give across. It needs to be the opposite of that. Okay, tricky, but it's doable. And I think this guy was doing it that I observed, because I saw him and he was just sort of like, he's standing there, very cool, and he was talking a lot as well. And this is the other thing, right? I've spoken on live streams recently and in my webinars about the need to have something to say. Okay, because when you walk into that interaction, you open the interaction. You need to be able to keep the bloody thing going, okay? Because, and this has happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to everybody, really. But like, you can walk into that interaction, you open, and then your mind goes blank, or you open and you try a couple of things, a couple of conversational gambits, and then she like doesn't really give you anything back, and then you're a bit like, so do you like stuff? It all goes a bit like that. It all goes a bit awkward. And what you need is to have the skill to keep the bloody thing going, even in the face of adversity. Because watching the body language of these two today, it seemed like he was talking a lot, and I don't know what he was saying. I don't know what routines he was using. I would imagine perhaps he was doing some cold reading. I would imagine that he was making assumptions about her. He was maybe doing some storytelling. He was maybe talking about his own experiences and kind of like linking that back to the observations he was making about her. But certainly, she seemed to be pretty entranced by it. She seemed to be pretty into it. And as I say, he was doing a lot of the talking, and then she was standing there and going, yes, or no, or whatever. And like, as I said before, I mean, who knows what's going to happen when he messages her? Maybe she'll just block it. But she certainly appeared to be pretty into it and kind of, kind of interested in terms of what he was saying. So it seemed to me he was doing something right. And this is the thing, you need to be able to do storytelling. You need to be able to carry the interaction, particularly in the early stages, because for a start, why should she be the one to carry the interaction when you've approached her? It should be your job to carry that interaction. Secondly, you are, as the approacher, you should have something to say. You should have something to contribute to the some value to give. Like RSD used to talk about this, giving value. Don't just take value. You just walk in and say, "You're cute. Let's get it together." Like, you want to give some value, and part of the value that you can give is things like humor, your charismatic personality, but also, storytelling, being able to entertain her, being able to hold her attention and keep her sort of enthralled for a period of time. That is showcasing your personality. Now, people will say, well, is that being a dancing monkey? Because you're just like, you've got to stand there like a street performer and entertain her. And not really, because here's the thing, like, the great advantage about daytime approach is that you get to showcase your personality more than you would on a dating app, okay? Because one of the downsides of the dating apps is that, particularly something like Tinder and Bumble, is that you write the profile and stuff, and obviously your pictures can reflect your personality, but you can't showcase your personality in the same way as you can with a face-to-face approach. But in order to showcase your personality, you need to keep her there for long enough so that she's going to be exposed to it. Okay? I don't expose yourself like that, gentlemen. Don't, nothing naughty. But you know what I mean? Like, you've got to allow her to see your personality. And if you just talk to her for 2 minutes, then she's not going to see the full glory of your wonderful personality. So actually, you want to be in there for a few minutes. It doesn't have to be 15 minutes, but you want to be in there for a little bit longer, ideally. And then as time goes on, then the likelihood is, it's not guaranteed, but the likelihood is, if you're a pretty cool guy and everything else, that she is going to get further into it. See, Nate says, the best way to get girls, don't wear a cheese print shirt. I don't know, Ben. I mean, like, all I know is this shirt. This is my lucky shirt. This shirt never fails. So if anybody's watching this, you want to know how to get girls, don't listen to this dude. You need to get a shirt like this because it works every time. But yeah, I mean, you've got to be able to do storytelling. Really, really important. You've got to be able to carry the conversation, okay? Because if you can't, then the danger is that the whole thing's just going to dry the hell up, and you're just going to lose the girl. Because remember that they feel nervous as well, okay? And they feel awkward as well. And if you allow the thing to dry up, firstly, she's going to blame you because she's going to think, well, that guy actually isn't very socially adept. And secondly, she's probably, because it's a bit awkward and nobody likes to feel awkward, she's going to make an excuse and say, listen, I've got to get going, and then she's going to go, and that's going to be it, okay? So, you know, you need to be prepared for that, and you need to be able to keep things going. And to be honest, it doesn't really, like your patter, your storytelling and all of that, it doesn't really have to be that great. It's not like you have to be Stephen Fry. It's not like you have to be like some great orator. You know, you're not there being Oscar Wilde. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the stuff you say can be a bit silly, or it can be kind of bullshit. It doesn't even really have to make sense that much. You just have to show that you can carry a conversation, because that is showing some really positive things about you, okay? You know, just the ability to stand in front of her and command her attention for a period of time is showing that you're a guy, probably done this before, probably pre-selected, has probably had good responses from other girls before, is probably able to command the attention of guys. Also, all of these things, big plus points, okay? Big tick boxes. So, you know, you need to learn those skills. Yeah, so, you know, he was talking to her for quite a period of time, and then they exchanged numbers. And she was, you know, I mean, he was, I would have guessed an older gentleman or a more mature gentleman. I would assume he's maybe his 40s or something like that. She was, you know, an attractive girl, I would say in her late 20s. And yeah, he pulled it off. You know, he did it. As our friend Mr. Delta 9999 says, you know, it could be that she was just doing it to get rid of him. But from the way I saw it, it was looking pretty solid to me. Of course, the proof will be in the pudding, though, when he sends the message. And if she responds and all the rest of it, which we'll probably never know unless he watches a video and he leaves a comment below. He watches this video and leaves a comment below. But you know, we're never really going to know. So you know, who can say? But as I said, the important point is getting that skill set down, because like, you could say, well, just go for girls who are, you know, who give you IOIs, who give you, I mean, this dude, I mean, come on, Nate, Jesus. I'm going to put you on timeout, man. It's just pathetic. Don't be silly. Yeah, be cocky funny. That's put me off now. Jesus, why are people so immature? For God's sake, can't we all just be mature, gentlemen of honor? Yeah, but you know, like, you've got to be able to keep the bloody thing going, and if you do, that shows good things about you. If you don't, it shows negative things about you. And this is the point. It's not always going to pay off. Okay, like, there will be times when it's not going to pay off. Okay, and you know, she's going to give you the number, that number's going to flake, or she's not going to come on the date, or whatever. In fact, probably the majority of times, it's not going to come off. But guess what? We don't have to be successful every single time. We don't even have to be successful 98% of the times. You know, we have to, you know, all we have to do is be successful. And I say successful, that is to say, going through the whole process from end to end, a couple of times a month. And that is better than 96% of guys on the planet. Do you know what I mean? So the important thing is not to micromanage it and think, well, was he really successful in this instance or not? The key thing is to look at the skill set and get the skill set down. Damn Nate Dog, chill, indeed. Right, okay, there's a couple of questions here. So Michael says, when you get IOIs, so that is indicator of interest. You know, she gives you a smile, she gives you a cheeky little look or whatever down the street. How do you approach? Well, depending on how overt it is, but if it's quite an overt, because you get different levels of IOI. I mean, sometimes you get very overt ones where she looks at you and she really smiles and it's like, really, you can tell it's on. Other times it's a lot more subtle. Like there's just a glance, and then she looks away, but you kind of sense it might be on. So you've got to gauge it from the potency of the IOI, if you like. But if it was reasonably blatant, then you can be quite direct. You can just walk up and be like, "Hey, just saw you checking me out. You naughty girl, shouldn't you be working?" or something. Do you know what I mean? Like you can be pretty direct. Say, "Listen, you can't look at me like that and expect me just to walk past and not come and say hi." Or "I saw you checking me out," or something like that, right? It's a much easier in to the conversation. If she's just sort of glanced at you, you can still say it because you're kind of cocky funny. You go up and say, "I saw you checking me out. I know you're pretending not to, but I know what you're up to. I know what you're about." And then you go into the normal conversation. So you can do it. I would say do it like that. Like if you have seen that indicator of interest, then you can afford to be slightly more direct, perhaps, than you would otherwise. How about if she slaps you behind at a bar? Well, I would turn around and go, "Oh, cheeky. Well, you're a naughty girl, aren't you? You can't keep your hands off me." All of that kind of stuff. I mean, this kind of thing does happen sometimes. Girls can be pretty outrageous, and but look, I mean, the more upfront she is, the more upfront that you can be. Michael says, "How do you find friends to day game with?" Well, if depending on where you live, if you walk around the city, you might see some people doing it. In which case, you can get chatting to them and maybe see if there's a chance to hang out with them further down the line. Otherwise, just check online in your local area. There might be a forum or some guys or there may be a Facebook group or something like this. Just have a look in your local area. Try to get a handle on what's going on. I mean, those are the main ways, really. I know people like, if you go to James Tusk's channel, I think James Tusk has got some sort of a thing where he can put you in touch with other people in certain cities around the world. So you might want to go and have a look at that. But one thing I would say is that there is value in hanging out with other people who are into this, right? Because if you're just hanging out with your normie mates, then it may not work as well for various reasons. So, the best options really are to find guys who are into this and just sort of befriend them and hang out with them while you're doing it. Or alternatively, you can just go on your own, just do it solo. Or choose like a normie mate, but a normie mate who gets it, and you can explain it to him and say, "Right, this is what we're going to do. And if somebody rejects me, I don't want you laughing at me because we're here to pick each other up." That's the most important thing. You don't want it to crash your state because you're with somebody who is sort of like they just don't get it and they're going to try and pull you down. Okay, so then Cortez says, "What if you're in a large group and you allow in a strange male to join your set? How do you blow him out if he starts to act up and begins to sour the set?" What do you mean? If you're talking to a large group? I think, well, one thing that you can do is whoever you're like, let's say, whatever the girl that you're focused on, you can start to sort of make it very, sort of position your body language so that you are sort of like, you and her are just in this little bubble together, and then it will be harder for him to break into that particular part of the group. Like, he can talk to the other mates, so what you want to do is get your girl and you're kind of just standing over here, and you can position yourself maybe so you've got your back to him, so he can talk to the other mates, but it's pretty clear that you and that girl are just having a more intimate conversation. And people are often nervous to break into that because because it can be embarrassing for them if it doesn't go well. And secondly, you can just physically put yourself behind, so that you've got your back to them, and you can. I'm just going to block this guy. I mean, I don't think it's a cheater shirt. I don't know why he's so obsessed with my clothing. But anyway, yeah. So you can like physically distance the other people from you, and that tends to work. That tends to work really well. But I mean, well, I've got to leave in a minute anyway because we're going into a webinar soon. But if you want to quickly clarify what you mean by that scenario, then I can maybe give some more insight on that. Okay, here's a good one. Richie Rich, can you give a quick view on whether day game is better than online in London? I've been on Tinder for years here, had lots of ladies, but usually quality subpar. Well, you can always, the quality of girl that you can meet via daytime approach is always going to be better than via dating apps. Well, not always, but in the majority of cases. And the reason for that is what I was saying before. Because when you do the daytime approach, you are able to showcase your personality, okay? And that gives you extra brownie points. Plus the fact, actually just doing the cold approach in itself gives you extra brownie points, all right? Because like most people don't have the balls to do it. So yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, ideally you want to be combining a bit of the two. Okay, you want to be doing a bit of the online stuff, and you want to be doing the daytime approaches as well. And that way, I mean, somebody here says dating apps are dead. Well, I know plenty of people who disagree with that. I don't think they're dead. I think it's good to be on them and to be using them. But all of these things, in the end, they're just a means to bring new people into your funnel. Okay. To bring new girls into your orbit, if you like. So it doesn't really matter if you meet her on a dating app or in a cafe or in a bar or whatever, right? You know, they're just more leads, if you like. But yeah, I mean, I think without a doubt, you're going to get better results from daytime approach, but it's more difficult. You know, like swiping on an app is easy, you know. Which is why most guys do that, and they don't do the actual in real life approach. But really what we should be doing is increasing our social skills so that we're able to go in and make those approaches in real life. Yes, he says, persona shines so much more with approach. True. Asian Neo, what's the best way to approach girls in shisha cafes when you're sat next to men? Do you mean when they're sat next to a man? Or sat next to men? I mean, look, some things are just not really worth... I mean, like, I don't know exactly what you're saying here, but if she's sat there and there's like 3 guys around her and they're all smoking shisha, I just wouldn't bother. I mean, like, there's no point in making this more difficult for yourself than it needs to be. You might as well approach sets where where it's just less problematic, you know? Like, you might as well just approach the girl who's like looking in the shop windows, or the girl at the art gallery, or, you know, whatever. I mean, there's sometimes it's a bit like, well, you know, is it really necessary to approach that particular group if it looks like it's going to be a problem? Okay, so, you know, sometimes I would just say, well, just cut your losses and don't bother, go find someone else. However, if, you know, you're really she's really attractive and all the rest of it, obviously you've got to kind of suss out the situation. You've got to know who these dudes, get an idea who these dudes are, if they're going to, you know, they're going to shoot you or something. But you know, like, you can wait for an opportune moment. Maybe she'll go to the bar, maybe she will go outside for a cigarette or something like that. You might be able to take a couple of moments where you can go and have a chat with her and maybe get her phone number discreetly, okay? I wouldn't necessarily, I mean, you know, that you could try befriending the guys. You're like, hey guys, you know, this shisha bar's cool, isn't it? You know, do you know any good nightclubs in town? You get talking to them. That segues you into the conversation. That's a bit more of a old school mystery method type thing. You could try that, but that's sort of like, that's a lot of effort, you know? And the whole thing about daytime approach is that it should be relatively easy. You know, you should be avoiding a lot of these obstacles that you get in other kinds of scenarios. But he says all the hot girls in shisha cafes, that is true, I think. I think that is very true. And then Richie Rich says, thanks, Troy. It just seems like I'm always dating down when on Tinder. It saps my confidence. But as you say, it's so much easier than day game. Yeah, I mean, I would then start trying a bit of daytime approach because you'll be surprised at the difference between the two of them. Craig says day game is the new niche, so many charlatans and coaches trying to make a quick buck. Well, I don't think, I mean, it's not really new. I mean, there were charlatans and salesmen trying to make a buck out of it in 10 years ago. So the grift has been going for quite a long time now. And even then, the truth of the matter is that, like, it's like day game it's not new. It's happened for hundreds of years. I mean, the idea, guys, men and women meeting each other in public places during the daytime. There's nothing new under the sun about it. It's probably, I mean, he might arguably be older than night game for all I know, because he didn't used to have nightclubs, right? Like in Victorian times, you would get girls walking down the street and guys saying things to them and trying to meet them and everything else. In Casanova's diaries, you get examples of day game, and that's 17th century. 18th century. So I wouldn't say it's a particularly new thing. It's just a useful thing to have in your armory, along with perhaps some other types of filter as well. Do you often approach? Yes, regularly. No, not often. No, not really. I would probably, again, it's one of those ones. I'd probably leave that alone, really. I mean, you don't have to. This is why it's good to live in a place that is voluminous, where there's a lot of different people. There's a big population. There's lots of opportunities. You don't have to be doing these more difficult approaches. You can make it easy on yourself. Do you have trouble learning? I absolutely have. Yeah, for sure. Many times, it's a great thing to do. Character building. I'd recommend it. Locally, dating apps just full of Snapchat scammers. I'd say maybe 1 in 10. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, like, John MLD's got another course on dating apps coming out very soon. I mean, those guys, him and Myron Gaines, really know about acing it on dating apps, really pimping a profile, getting good results. I mean, I think there's certainly a place for dating apps, for sure. Because we have to remember that that's how the majority of people meet now. That's just the way it is. So you might as well be on them, but I would say have other strings to your bow. Quickest way to establish premise on a date. I'm not sure. What do you mean by premise? I'm not sure what the question is. Okay, so Asian Neo just clarifies his question from before about this thing. If you're out with a group of men, well, I think fundamentally what I said before, really, I think that you want to try to get the girl that you are interested in. I think you want to sort of get it so that you and her, as quickly as you can. I mean, like, obviously talk to the group for a bit and whatever, but then you want to sort of like get her into a more private conversation with just the two of you, and that's going to discourage other people from dropping in. Now, somebody might drop in, if and try to mess things up. If it's one of your friends, then I would say, do you really want to be out with that guy doing this kind of thing? Because maybe they're just not a very good wingman. If it's a random, then there are two things you can do. You can either ignore him and just carry on talking to her and hope that he gets embarrassed and goes away, which happens. Or you can try befriending him, and you can befriend him, but you can befriend him in a kind of offhand way. It's like, yeah, man, you're cool. Pat him on the shoulder, and then turn back to the girl and carry on talking to the girl and shut him out. Okay, I would go for something like that, right? It shows dominance, it shows social acuity, and it's unlikely that he's going to try to really mess things up after that point. Okay, right. So sorry. So that question, he said the quickest way to establish kind of like frame on the date. Well, it comes through your whole demeanor, right? I mean, eye contact, a little bit of touch, not creepy, but like touch on the arm, touch on the lower arm, whatever. Talking loudly, taking up space, being like, obviously, what you say, you walk into a bar together, you're very confident when you walk into the bar, you don't let things phase you, you're decisive, you are like all of these things. But I would say eye contact is very important. Proximity, that is being near to her, is important. Ideally, you want to be sitting next to each other on a couch or something on the date. Yeah, I mean, like you just want to be making it very plain from everything that you do that you are interested in her in that way. And the other thing to do is avoid boring chit chat. You don't want to go into some boring conversation about your job and her job and all that kind of stuff. You want to try to keep it a bit sort of more fantastical than that in a way. All right, guys, listen, I've got to leave it there now because I've got to go into a webinar in a few minutes. But thanks ever so much for tuning in. Fantastic session as always. I'll do another one of these. Well, let me see. It's Saturday tomorrow, isn't it? I will be doing another one of these very soon anyway. So look out. I will try to publicize it in advance this time. So do have your questions at the ready and I will answer them next time. Also, please do subscribe to this channel. Hit the red button below. Hit the notifications bell so that when a new video comes out, you're able to see that immediately. Get on my free email list. There's a link to that in the description. Well, there will be a link to that in the description below. And also, I've got a collection of 11 books about dating, about dating, about all of this stuff. It's called Renegade Dating Blueprint. And that is also available on the link of almost any video on this channel, with the exception of this one, because I haven't dropped the link in yet. But I will, and it will be below in the description. Okay. Thank you ever so much, guys. It's been cool. We will speak again very soon. Bye-bye.